Hello, Monarchs. Okay, so here we are. We're in lesson 2.5. This is video notes. Video notes for lesson 2.5. Problem solving with verbal models. So remember, verbal models is anything with written words. Written words. So another way we call this is word problems, right? So we're dealing with word problems, okay? So at Monta Vista, we have a little strategy for dealing with word problems, and it's a four-step strategy, right? So Monta Vista High School's four-step method. The first thing we want to do is label all our variables, okay? Go through our questions, label all our variables. After that, we're going to write an equation. Then we solve the equation. I'm going to highlight solve. Then lastly, we write the answer into a complete sentence. And a way for you to remember this as you go through math at Monta Vista. We made a little mnemonic here. VESS, volcanoes erupt silly smoke. And that's to remember that first, label the variables. Second, E, write an equation. 3, solve. And then 4, write your answer in a complete sentence. Okay. So any word problems, right? When they have a question mark, we also want to see your answer in a complete sentence. So example number 1 is a unique question. There has to be a little bit of knowledge about how we measure speed, but I'll get to that. It's not my favorite example, but we'll go ahead and knock it out of the way first. So I'm going to read it first, then we'll start labeling. So on a trip to the Grand Canyon, you drove 160 miles in 2.5 hours. What was your average speed? Okay, so let's go back and let's start highlighting some important things. So first of all, we have to know is what are they asking us to do? What's the variable we're solving for? Well, the question was, what was your average speed? So that word speed right here is our unknown. Our unknown is going to be our variable, right? It's our variable because we need to solve for the unknown. That's what variables are for. Okay, but they also give us some very other interesting information that we're going to use. 160 miles in 2.5 hours, right? You drove 160 miles in 2.5 hours. So something to notice with speed, right? If you didn't know this, is whenever we talk about speed, usually it's miles per hour, right? Our speed is going to be our speed times our distance equal our speed times our time equals our distance, right? So s times our time equals our distance. Okay, so 160 miles is distance, and then 2.5 hours is time. Okay, and our speed is going to be multiplied against our time. So how this would write in an equation is 2.5, which represents our hours, is going to be multiplying our speed, which we don't know yet. That's what we're going to solve for. 2.5 times s. And you know what? I'm going to put s in parentheses. And I'll go over that in a second. Equals our distance, 160. Right? So our speed times our time is going to equal our distance. Okay? Speed times our time is going to equal our distance. So if we want to solve for s, we have to notice something. 2.5 is a whole number. I mean, it's all one number, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 is being multiplied by s, okay, equals 160. Now, our goal to solve for s is to get s alone. S is not alone because s is being multiplied by 2.5. I need to get rid of 2.5. The way to get rid of something in math is to do the opposite or inverse operation. So if s is being multiplied by 2.5 and I want to get rid of it, I'm going to have to divide by 2.5. So notice I turn this into a fraction. I used this sign right here, which means divide. Divide by 2.5. I do this because I know that this is going to cancel out because any number divided by itself equals 1. But if I do it to this side, I have to do it to the other side too. So I'm going to divide this by 2.5. So what am I left with? Well, my s now is completely alone. The reason why is because 2.5 divided by 2.5 is 1. 1 times s is just 1s. 1s is the same thing as s. So now I have my s all alone. I have s equals. Now I just got to calculate this, but that's why they give us a calculator. So I'm taking my calculator. I'm going to type 160. I'm going to hit divide. And I'm going to divide exactly by this number. So 2, our decimal point is right here, 0.5. I hit enter on my calculator. It does the work for me. It does the work for me. So my answer is going to be 64. And the way our answer is written for speed is miles per hour. So our S equals 64, which means that's going to be miles per hour. So we're going to write a little sentence. What was your average speed? The average speed was 64 miles per hour. Again, that one's a little tricky because we're dealing with speed and distance and time, right? Something that's you're going to learn more in science. But that was our first one right there. Okay, so number 2, we're not dealing with with speed and all that. We're just going to deal with a story about video games. Okay, so Alex bought a Wii, which is a type of video game console, for $200 and some games for $50 each. He paid a total of $800. How many games did Alex purchase? Okay, so again, first let's go through the question and label our variables. Okay, so Alex bought a Wii for $200 and some games for $50 each. How many games? We don't know, right? Some games, right? They're not telling us. This is what we're going to have to solve for. This is what they're asking. How many games did Alex purchase? So we're going to call this G. G is going to be our variable. Okay, so I'm going to label this G. Now, time to write an equation. Okay, so G is the amount of games that he purchased. We don't know how many, but we do know some other stuff. We know that he paid $200 up front for the Wii, and we know that he paid $50 per game. And here it says that he paid a total amount of $800. So when we're dealing with money, right, the word total is going to be really important because that's what we're going to put on the right side of the equal sign. We're going to put 800. The reason why is because we're still going to solve for G, but they're giving us the amount of money and we know the total, right? So now we just need to set up an equation, okay? So $200. We know that he paid $200 up front. So $200 up front, and $50 per game for each game, right? Each and per means multiplication. Well, what are we multiplying 50 by? We're multiplying 50 by G, the amount of games. It's $50 per game. So the way we would write this is it's $200 plus $50 per game. So I'm going to write our variable here in green, $50 per game. Now we have a two-step equation. This is going to lesson 2.2. How do I solve a two-step equation, right? Well, if I remember from the notes, right, I deal with addition or subtraction first, then multiplication last. Multiplication and division last. And the other analogy that I gave for this is you can put a box over your number and variable, and this is like our best friends, right? We keep our best friends to the end. We take care of our outer friends first, right? So if we're having some sort of party, we're going to kick out our outer friends first, and then we're going to stay with our best friends to the end, right? So we're going to hold on to this. We're going to take care of this 200 first. This is a positive 200. It's a positive 200. So if this is a positive 200, if I want to get rid of it, I'm going to have to subtract 200. You know what? I'm going to do this in a different color. It's a little faded. So I'm going to minus 200. The reason why is because 200 minus 200 is going to cancel out. And what I do to that side of the equation sign, I'm going to build my line here. I'm going to do to the other side as well. Look at how I lined them up right here. So this is crossed out. This is all gone. I can drop down 50G because I didn't touch 50G yet. I didn't do anything to the box. 800 minus 200. Type that into my calculator. I'm going to get 600. So I had 800 minus 200. I got 600. Now I have, remember, 50G. If they're glued together, what are they doing? They're multiplying. This is 50 times G. I want G alone. I want nothing else on this side of the equal sign except for G. I want G and nothing else. This 50 is in the way. I need to get rid of it. How do I get rid of multiplication? I do the opposite. I do the inverse. I'm going to divide. Now remember, I care about G. I'm trying to remove 50. This is the number that I'm concerned about. So I'm going to divide by 50 because I'm trying to get rid of the 50. Okay. If I do that to this side, I'm going to do it to this side as well. I'm left with G equals 600 divided by 50. I use my calculator. 600 divided by 50 is 12. Now, am I done yet? Not yet. I got to put my answer in a complete sentence. Complete sentence, right? So my final step here is I'm going to put Alex, that's the person's name. Alex bought 12 video games. All right, Monarchs, for the final example here, currently you have $30 and your sister has $90. Okay, so something important to notice, right? There's two people here, okay? There's you and your sister, right? So keep in mind there's you and your sister. We're dealing with two different people here, right? And then they give us some numbers. I'm just going to underline these numbers because these numbers are going to be important. You decide to save $5 of your allowance each week, okay? So $5 of your allowance each week. Now, each means multiplication. However, we don't know how many weeks are going to go on. So that's something we might need to figure out later. While your sister decides to spend $10, right? So something to keep in mind, saving, when we save money, you're adding money to your pocket. When you spend money, you're losing money, okay? Something you're going to learn one day as you're starting to have a job and earn money, right? So $10 each week. How long will it be before you have as much money as your sister? Okay. So what they're asking us here is how long will it be before we have as much money as your sister? So they're actually not asking for the amount of money. They're asking how long. Okay. How long, right? And how do we measure length and time? Well, they're giving us other keywords here of week, right? So our time is going to be weeks. So we're going to say for how long it's going to be our weeks. How many weeks go by before you have the same amount of money as your sister? So let's set up our equations, okay? So you have $30. That's what you start with, right? You started with $30 and you're saving $5. You're also gaining $5 every single week. Every single week. We don't know how many weeks are going to go by. We don't know how many weeks are going to go by. And then your sister, she's starting with $90. She's starting with $90, but she's losing $10 per week. Same variable. Now, because we want to see how we're going to solve for W, but we want to solve at the point to where the money is the same amount. So what we're actually going to do is equal them to each other. We're going to equal them to each other. Okay. When we equal them to each other, this helps us solve for our variable. Okay. So now we have less than 2.4 variables on both sides. We're going to solve for our variable. Okay. So step number one, I need to move my W's to one side and my numbers to the other side. I'm going to move the W's first. I like dealing with negatives because if this is negative 10W, if I want to move this over here, I'm going to add 10W. When I add 10W, the whole thing's going to cancel, including the W. When I include the W here, I get to move all of it together. But if I do that to this side, I'm going to do it to this side as well. So I'm going to add 10W. Okay. So 5W plus 10W, how many total W's do I have? Well, I add up the numbers in front and keep the W. This is going to get me 15W. I didn't touch 30, so I dropped that down. I didn't touch 90 over here, so I'm going to drop that down as well. Now, I need to get W alone. My W still isn't alone. I have a two-step equation. I take care of addition or subtraction first. I'm going to minus 30 to both sides. My 30s cancel out. I'm left with 15W equals 90 minus 30. Put that in my calculator. I get 60. Once again, W is still not alone yet. W is still not alone yet. This is 15 times W. So if this is multiplication, I want to get rid of the 15. I need to divide by 15. I'm going to do that to both sides. These 15s cancel out. I'm left with W. My W is alone. 60 divided by 15 is 4. So what does that mean for the question? The question was, how long will it be before you have as much money as your sister? W, remember, stands for weeks. So we put this in a sentence. It will take 4 weeks for me and my sister to have the same money. Same amount of money. All right, guys, so that was your notes. I know word problems, they're not the most fun, but go ahead and try your best with the homework. I will try to get a homework help video out as well, and you're going to have a sub and an aide to assist you. So make sure you just try your best on the homework.